Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I'm here to share with you all of the books I read in the month of October, and I have to say this was an amazing month for me for reading wise, and I'm very proud of myself. I will gladly pat myself on the back. So usually I have been averaging 8 books every single month. That's like 2 books a week, but this time I listened to 2 audiobooks. So my total now, so instead of 8 this month, I'm happy to say that I read 10 books. I'm in the double digits and I'm pretty happy about that. So usually when I do my wrap-ups, I like to start with my least favorite book, working up to my favorite. This month I read a lot of different genres and a lot of the same genres in some ways. So I'm splitting up into genres and formats, and you know, I'm just gonna do it that way. So first up, I'm gonna start off with the 2 audiobooks I listened to. Now I'm not a big audiobook person because I've told you my kids control the radio, etc., etc. But since my son has started school, I do have a little bit, depending on what days he has therapy because he'll get out of school early for that. You get the gist. He only has therapy certain days a week. So I do have about 30 minutes total to listen to an audiobook. And then I can listen to audiobooks with my daughter in the car. She really doesn't care that much. She's not at that age yet. So I am learning, maybe I can get back into audiobooks. So that's why I decided to go with it this month. And of course, the first one I listened to is The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. If you don't know, Kelly Bishop played Emily Gilmore in the Gilmore Girls, and this is all about her life. And I did not know much about Kelly Bishop. I really didn't. I knew that she was Emily Gilmore and that was that. But this, I learned so much about her. She was actually a ballet dancer when she was younger. That was her big dream. She had a very tumultuous home life with a dad that really wasn't there. Her mom was her biggest cheerleader, and Kelly just fell in love with dancing, so she went to ballet, and then eventually that love of ballet became a love of maybe trying to get into Broadway and being a chorus line dancer, which led to her huge break of being in the Broadway phenomenon, A Chorus Line. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not a Broadway person. Like, I like it, I don't love it, I'm not like fully into it, but I was very invested in reading with her audition and how she got the part and how she was a dancer. Have I watched 50,000 clips? Was she, when she was in the chorus line? Absolutely. It was just phenomenal. So with that, she kind of, she was getting older, so you can't dance for long because you're getting older. So she turned her love into acting, and she was on lots of different TV shows. She was Baby's mother in Dirty Dancing, which I never knew. I'm not the biggest fan of Dirty Dancing, but that's interesting. And then she got her really, really big break in Gilmore Girls, and man, it was just a great book to learn more about her life and things like that. I'd say if you're a big fan of Gilmore Girls, I would highly recommend listening to this because it's obviously narrated by her, and I loved it. I would give it a 4 out of 5. It was a great audiobook, and that kind of really got me back into the whole audiobook thing. We go through waves sometimes with reading, and I realize the other audiobook I read and listen to, I shall say, is one I've been wanting to listen to for a while, but just haven't because I knew it was going to be heavy. And that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Now, if you don't know, she was a big Nickelodeon star. Now, for me, I am 36, so I grew up, like, when I started watching TV was like kind of mid-90s. We didn't even have cable in my house for the longest time. But when we finally got cable, Disney Channel was my jam. I grew up with like Lizzie McGuire. I did watch a lot of Nickelodeon shows too, like Carissa Explains It All that. So I was a different generation. Jeanette McCurdy was kind of the generation after me. She was on iCarly, which I know was a big show. I've heard of it. She was also on Sam and Cat, and that's kind of her big thing. So this is all about her life, and whew, it is a heavy freaking read. Jeanette had a very rough upbringing with her mom. Her mom is a cancer survivor, which is awesome, but her mom is also a narcissist. Her mom kind of made Jeanette get an eating disorder when she was 11 with anorexia that turned into bulimia after her mother passed away. And it's all about Jeanette's life of how her mom kind of forced her to be a child star and get into acting, and Jeanette never wanted that. And it just really goes into the detail of growing up in a very tumultuous home and, you know, getting therapy after the fact and learning, you know, that through her eyes, you know, this is, when you read the title, I'm Glad My Mom Died, you're like, oh my gosh, she hated her mom. No, this is not like that at all. When she was growing up, her mom was her biggest idol. Like, she loved her mom and did whatever she could for her mom. Like, she put her mom on a pedestal. And she's now learning as she's an adult and she's been through therapy that the relationship her and her mom had and how her mom treated her was not normal. And so it's very interesting. I highly recommend listening to it, even if you're not familiar with the iCarly thing, which I wasn't. It's a very complicated and structure of a family and how she grew up, and man, it was amazing. 5 out of 5, like stunning. I can understand why I got all the hype. Fully am on board with that. Moving on to my next genre, I read a lot of witchy, kind of spooky reads because October, you know, I was really going for it. So I have a lot of witchy ones in particular. So I'm just gonna grab whatever I see. First up, The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I saw this because everyone's been talking about it on Instagram, TikTok. I'm glad I picked it up. It was super cute. It's about a character named Kira who lives in the capital, and she's a librarian. And basically the capital's not doing so good. People are rioting, people are not happy, and so they're destroying everything, and they are getting to the library next. And so all the other librarians have fled, but her and Kaz, a sentient like spider plant that could talk, are like, we got to save some books. So they save like 3 or 4 totes, and they're like, all right, we got to get out of here. And so they go to Kira's hometown, which is like on an island that's really not very well known. And Kira's like, oh, I have to like provide for myself, have food and a job. And so what do you know, one of the books that she brought with her from the library is a spell book. So she starts like making crops really, really good. She starts healing the island's trees, and it's just a very cozy, whimsical, witchy book. No spice in here, just really cozy, small town witchy vibes is what I can tell you. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Super cute, perfect for Halloween fall vibes. To yet another witchy read, that is The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel / companion novel to The XX, which I read a couple years ago. I like this. I didn't love it. This is just kind of an okay series for me. It took me a while to get through because I just wasn't in love with this. So this one follows Gwen, who is the main character in the first book's cousin, and then we also follow Wells, who is the main character in the first book's brother. They have a very tumultuous relationship, hate to love. He moves to the small town. It's like Stars Hollow, if Stars Hollow had witches on it. And basically Gwen runs a shop called Something Wicked where they sell a lot of witchy trinkets that are not really magic, even though she's a witch. And Wells is like, I'm gonna open up like the real deal across the streets. They have a fight, and then they learn maybe a new coven is coming into town, so they have to team up together. It was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about. Yes, of all witches, it's not a favorite witchy read. If you want like a steamy witchy one, I would check this one out. Otherwise, I would give it a 3-star. It wasn't horrible. It just wasn't amazing for me, I'll say that. Next up, I read my very first T. Kingfisher novel, A Sorceress Comes to Call, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I don't get the hype behind her. I don't know. This is kind of a retelling of, I believe, a Brothers Grimm story, Goose Girl, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, and I'm sorry about that. Maybe if I did know, I would probably love this story more. But basically, we follow a character named Cordelia who knows her mother is unusual. Like, Cordelia oftentimes has to like sit without moving or saying anything, and she knows it's her mother, and then she learns that her mother is a sorceress, and she's kind of not doing that well financially. So her mother's like, I found this guy, we're gonna go and we're gonna move in with him, and we're gonna like take all his money because I'm gonna like use my witchy vibes upon him. And so Cordelia is wants to help these people that are living in this house because she's like, I don't want my mom to control them like she controls me. And so it kind of goes on from there. You get a whole slew of the house members and what they think and how they know that her mom is really unusual. And it was dark, but not very grim. It read more to me like a YA book, which I don't know if it is or not. You'll have to let me know, but I liked it. I didn't love it. I do want to give her another shot because people love T. Kingfisher so much. So let me know your favorite. I know she wrote Nettles and Bone. Is that the one she wrote? Or A House with Good Bones, I think? I'm not sure, but let me know. I would give it a 3 out of 5. It was okay. It just wasn't my favorite. I'll tell you a book, witchy book that I loved, and that is A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kinney. I obviously picked this one up because of the cover. It is stunning, and I love the cover, and I was like, it'll be okay. I freaking love this book. I was not expecting. So it's about a character named Hecate Kate, who is a witch, and she's the head witch. So she's really good with nature. She's really good with providing people sanctuary and stuff like that. And she lives in the cottage, and she's very reclusive. She's very a recluse, and she likes doing her unusual things. Her mother was a kitchen witch, so she knows a lot of recipes. And in fact, there's recipes in this like Bam Bam banana bread and salted caramel hot chocolate with like to tell your secrets, or maybe to make you knock out, like pass out pies. One of them where it's like you really need a good night's sleep, make pass out pie. And so basically she's just living her life, and then she gets a knock on the door from Matthew, a necromancer. She knows that they used to be friends. They had a big falling out, and he's like, I need sanctuary, and she's like, crap. And so he comes in, and And then she starts noticing her coven, because she does have a coven, is maybe keeping some secrets from her after her mother's death, because there's a lot of darker things. And so you have a whole bunch of variety of witches in here, like her mother was a kitchen witch, Matthew's a necromancer, her sister is a sea witch, her other sister is really good with tarot cards and things like that. There's some witches that are book witches. It's just so small town, cozy, witchy vibes that I loved. The plot is not amazing. It's more of a day-to-day progression and more of a character progression book. But man, something about it, I just fell in love with hardcore. You know how you just read books and you're just like, this is for me 1000%. I don't know if it could be for other people, but for me, it was money. And that's how I felt about this one. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I could see that some people think it would just be okay. But somehow, I don't know why, I just love the crap out of it. Moving on to one that was just kind of okay. I read on a whim because I saw it on Kindle Unlimited and I thought, why not? It's spooky season's almost over, and that is Spookily Yours. I forget who it was by. I also forget the main character's name, but basically we have a witch. She lives in a small town where magic and things like that. I want to say her name's Willow. I'm not 1000% sure. Let's just call her Willow for the sake of this video. She's a witch. She works at her sister's coffee shop, and she lost her familiar years ago because every witch has one. It used to be a cat named Binks. Isn't that freaking cute? And then she adopts a new cat, and she thinks maybe something is different about him. And then one day she comes home and the cat's talking to her, and he's like, hey, I'm not really a cat. I'm a freaking demon, and I need you to unlock me into my actual form because I'm not a cat. And she's like, what? And so somehow she does it, and she meets Damien, a demon prince, and they form a relationship. And it's just bizarre. This is just steam heavy. Like, there's not a lot of plot. It's just like basically as soon as he turns into a human, they look at each other and they're like, yes, please, let's do this. And that's about it. And so it wasn't anything to write home about. There is a sequel to it, or novella sequel, something with her sister. I don't know, if you just want a quick, steamy, mostly steamy witchy read, I check it out. But for me, it was like a 2.5. It was okay. Like kind of witchy, fantastical book I read was Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. This is the sequel to The House on the Cerulean Sea, which I love and adore. I think a lot of us feel the same way. I did like this one not nearly as much as the first one, which I was expecting. I was not expecting this one to be a 5 out of 5. I thought it would be a cute sequel. A lot of times sequels just aren't it for me. Sometimes they are. Most of the time they're not. That's okay. But either way, I can't tell you much about this one because I don't want to spoil the Cerulean Sea. So the House of the Cerulean Sea, we follow a character named Linus, who is like one of the caseworkers for the Department of Magical Youth, because there's like magical youth everywhere, like X-Men kind of thing. And so he has to go to a lot of foster homes, like, or foster homes, I don't know, to make sure everything's been running okay, the children are being taken care of, the foster caretaker is doing good. And then he gets a case to do this really unusual house that the government's always been kind of iffy about, and that's the house by the Cerulean Sea. So he goes there and meets Arthur, who is taking care of all these kids, and he meets all these magical kids, and he's never like fallen in love with any kids. He's been like, I'm just doing my job and then I'm gonna leave. But man, when he meets these kids, he just falls in love with them, and maybe he falls in love with Arthur too. It is just so cute. The second book follows all of them and kind of their dealings with the government, because the last book left off of like, we're not gonna hide anymore, we're gonna be who we are, and you need to accept magical youth. And so that is what this whole book is about, court cases and things like that. And that's where it kind of lost me. I think the first book was just so magical and whimsical that I just loved it so much. And that was here in this book, but just not as much, if that makes sense. So I give it a 4 out of 5. I'm not saying don't read it. Definitely read it. If you love the first one, I would definitely read this one. It gives you a closed, finite chapter. Is it still adorable? Yes. Is it still whimsical and magical? Yes. But the first one just had it all for me, if that makes any sense. So I still enjoyed it. The last 2 books I read are totally just different categories. I have a mystery thriller, the only one I read this month, and that is the last one, At the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. It was okay. It wasn't great. I will say the cover's amazing. The spine's amazing. And interestingly enough, this thriller which I was very surprised with, has a map in it because we follow a character named Frank who is a middle-aged guy, and his daughter calls him out of the blue, and they've been estranged for quite some time, and she's like, hey, I'm getting married. And he's like, oh my gosh. And she's like, I want you to come. I want you to meet my fiance. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. I will do anything you want because I want to have a relationship with you, because her mother died when she was younger, and Frank just, that's all he has is his daughter. And so he goes to meet her fiance and his family, and like something's off with them. They're like mega rich. They're gonna have this wedding at like their family's like campgrounds where it's like really richy and stuff. And he's like, something's off with them. And then he learns of a local murder, things like that. I did not love the ending. I didn't love the big plot twist. It was all just kind of okay. So I wouldn't say this is an amazing thriller. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I definitely like his other book, Hidden Pictures, better. This one, if you hear my kid, I am very sorry. It's just, you know, no nap times anymore. And the last book I read that I loved and adored is Catch and Keep by Erin Hahn. Nobody talks about this book, and I wish everyone would. So I've read a few books by her. I'm not gonna lie, the cover's what drew me in, but this book just got my heart. It follows a character named Marin and also a character named Josiah. And Marin is 33. She's a park ranger. She's doing okay with her life, and then she learns that her boyfriend up and steals her promotion out of nowhere. She's been like going for this job this whole time, and her boyfriend's always been like, I don't want it, and then he takes it from her last minute. And not only that, when he learns he takes it from her, he's like, hey, let's get married. And she's like, hey, let's not. Like, you've betrayed me, and like, why would I want to marry you? And so she runs back to Wisconsin, where her family always summered at this lakeside resort, because she also had her mentor there, because she's a really big fishing person. She had a big fishing YouTube channel. She knows how to catch muskies, I believe. I don't know anything about fishing. But either way, she goes there and she gets a job with Josiah, who is her older brother's best friend. And he owns the property now, the whole lakeside resort. And he's like, hey, stay at this cottage for free while you're fixing up your mentor's cottage, and, you know, just give fishing tours. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And so to help him, Josiah is a single dad of 2 kids. He's divorced, and his youngest kid is autistic. If you're getting why I love this book, bells should be ringing for you. So Marin's like, I'll help you out. You know, I know mornings are hard. I want to learn about your daughter Lucy and her mannerisms and her stims and what maybe can set her off, what I can help her with, what can help her sensory wise. And so she does that, and she really inserts herself into their life. And of course, romance comes from that. And I loved it. 4.5 out of 5, man. I think I loved it so much because, yes, I have read a few books of autistic characters, but this is the first one I've read from the point of view of a special needs parent. And I am a special needs parent. My son is autistic, and it is a different world. Let me tell you, you will never be able to understand it unless you're fully in it. And even so, every situation is different. It is hard. It is heartbreaking. It is isolating. It is depressing. I love reading from his point of view of how he would do anything for his daughter, how he would help her sensory needs, how he wouldn't expect other people to help. But, you know, Marin just really didn't want to change his daughter. She just tried to understand her and be there for her in any way possible. And as special needs parents, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with you, because that's very, very rare a person will do that. Not a lot of people, friends and family. I have some. I have a lot of friends and family. I have a lot of family members that just don't get it, nor do they care to get it. They're just like, whatever. So to have somebody that really invests time and energy into your special needs kid is a big freaking deal. So I loved it. The romance was cute. Everything about it was cute. Read it. You will not be disappointed. I adored it. You have all of the books I read in October. Let's hope I can get this formula and get to like reading 10 books now every month. That would be phenomenal. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.